just wait 1 minute that Florence finished to set everything. That's okay. So, Sheila, it's up to you.
Jesus.
I think, Sheila, you can start if you want.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to all of you to come to this very important session promoting integral ecology in the digital age. And we have three very fine speakers with distinctive perspectives who will be sharing their thoughts. And this is our first session. This is a celebration of Laudato Si Week, which is beginning today and going till the 24th of May. So we join one another in this celebration. I would like to give you a gallery view. Whoops, nobody's there. But anyway, there's a sense of being together, how we can be what we call interbeing. We're all in one place around the globe at this moment, being in communion really with one another. And so it's a special way for us to be in relationship. And we want to honor that. Even though we have the COVID virus, we know that we are together in solidarity with one another, our pain and our struggles. So thank you for being here with us. I would like to share my screen because we have much that we want to explore today. So as you see, our session is going to be both in English and in Spanish because our office really works with both speaking groups. And so it's an opportunity for us to be together. My name is Sister Sheila Kinsey. I'm a Franciscan, and I am the executive co-director of the JPIC Commission for both men and women religious. This is International Congregations and Institutes. And I will be your facilitator for today. And as you can see from the schedule, it's going to be a full morning. We'll be talking about ecology and communication in this digital age, followed by some mass media explorations, as well as social media. And there will be a pause in the middle of the day so that you can kind of have a break and get a coffee or whatever it is that you would like to have. So before we go too far into today's session, I'd like us to begin with prayer. And this was prepared by Sister Ann Corey, who is the international coordinator of the JPIC Religious of the Sacred Heart. And also the Spanish speaker will be Sister Ines Ruiz, who is a JPIC promoter of Saturdays for JJZoo. So this is a wonderful way to start our day in reflection on communication. And could we please begin our prayer?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. We weave not only clothing, but also stories. Stories that build up, not tear down. Stories that help us rediscover our roots and the strength needed to move forward together.
Inez, please.
Bien. Que cuenten que somos parte de un tejido vivo,
We are part of a living weave. In the weave of the threads, a narrative can tell us that we are part of a living and interconnected tapestry, a narrative that can be revealed into weaving of threads which connect us to one another.
As narrator, God calls things into life. From Genesis, God saw that it was good. And from Psalm 139, for you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb.
Dios, la verdad y de la santidad.
God of truth and holiness helps us to share the narrative that future generations will learn about this time in our world.
Así
that you may tell your children and grandchildren.
We are co-creators and stewards. Integral ecology highlights not just the interconnectedness that exists among God, humanity, and creation,
sino que reconoce que los valores y las decisiones
But
políticas
also recognizes how political, economic, cultural, social, and religious values and decisions are interrelated and affect the way people live with one another on the planet and use its resources.
everything is connected with other creatures, with each other, with God. The next time a cloud of anxiety rises up within us, let us reflect that the flowers, birds, trees, and other living creatures around us, even in an urban environment, are not in lockdown.
el canto de los pájaros no se puede erradicar. El mensaje de
The
la
bird
esperanza
song cannot be stamped out. The Christian hopeful message of Easter cannot be suppressed.
la gracia de Dios
God's grace
continuamente
is continually
desinteresados de la
at work in unselfish acts of self-emptying, love, and sacrifice.
God of mercy and compassion, reveal to us The lessons about integral ecology from this dark night of COVID-19.
¿Qué estamos aprendiendo sobre la
What are
ecología?
we learning about integral ecology through this dark night of COVID-19?
This is the opportunity for conversion. Laudato Si is Pope Francis' passionate call to humanity for a change in direction. What we are living now is a place of metanoia or conversion, and we have the chance to begin. So let's not let it slip from us, and let's move ahead.
El clamor de la tierra, el clamor de los pobres.
The cry of the earth, the cry of the poor. We have the freedom needed to limit and direct technology.
We can put technology at the service of another type of progress, one which is healthier, more human, more social, more integral.
¿Cómo podemos utilizar la
How
tecnología
can we use technology to listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor?
Mary, woman and mother, you wove the divine word in your womb. You recounted by your life the magnificent works of God. Listen to our stories, hold them in your heart, and make your own the stories that no one wants to hear.
Enséñanos a reconocer el hilo bueno que
Teach
guía
us to recognize the good thread that runs through history. Look at the tangled knots in our life that paralyze our memory. By your gentle hands, every knot can be untied.
Woman of the Spirit, Mother of Trust, inspire us too. Help us build stories of peace, stories that point to the future and show us the way to live them together. Amen.
Thank you very much for placing us in such a receptive place to be open to the message which we will be receiving today from our three speakers. Really, communication is so important. The Word of God will be present with us as we exchange our ideas. We will be affirmed with things that we already know, but be challenged in many other ways. So here are our three speakers for today. Father Martin Nunez, Caballo Nunez, Franciscan, Sister Bernadette Rios, and Father Armando Picardel. So you'll be hearing from all three of those with different perspectives as we move along in this morning. So our first speaker then is Father Martin Caballo Nunez. He will be leading us off with the talk, Integral Ecology and Communication in the Digital Era. He is a Franciscan from Zermawa, Spain. He has a doctorate in moral theology, Academia Apostoliana, Rome, and a diploma in social communication from the Gregorian in Rome. He teaches in the Antic and Alphonsianum in Rome, and in the Franciscan School of Theology in the United States. So he comes with a very broad background. He's the vice rector and rector magnifico ad interim at the Antonianum, and he's written a number of books, and the latest was this Total Está Conecto, Ecologia Integral and Comunicación en la Era Digital, which attracted particularly Father Armando, because he read the book and he said, we need to get him as a speaker. So that has been the initiative of Father Armando. So without much ado, I welcome to us Father Martin to help us explore this integral ecology in the whole digital age. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm afraid my connection is not good. I don't know if you are listening to me correctly, but I have problems with the connection. It's quite unstable. Are you following me?
Yes, we are. Keep going, Father.
Okay. So I've been asked to talk about integral ecology and communication in the digital era. Basically, I would like to present a humanist perspective because I am convinced that to change our world, we have to change our mentality. So we have to find out which are the anthropological, theological, and other preconceptions that are blocking our way of seeing things. The COVID-19 pandemic, which began in Wuhan, China, at the end of 2019, has caused a huge socio-economic crisis, and once again has uncovered our vulnerability, the absurdity of our despotic anthropocentrism and the falsity of our claim to be like gods. That's a continuous pretension. One tiny and inert element of nature has been enough to bring into disarray the entire technocratic society of competitive individualism and globalized indifference. Fascinated by technological advances, we have neglected fraternity and relational goods that are the very things that nourish, sustain, and strengthen our lives. I am quoted Pope Francis. As the Bible illustrates, in his prime, man does not understand. The COVID-19 is reminding us that everything is connected, that we are beings in relation, deeply dependent on one another. Some authors have recently maintained that through biotechnological progress, we will be able to overcome the physical limitations that are linked to our belonging to the web of life. They claim that we will achieve a self-sufficient post-human condition, transhumanism. We will be completely autonomous without depending on nature. The era when humankind stood helpless before natural epidemics is probably over, said one of these authors. This claim of increasing superiority and autonomy over the rest of creation has fallen away once again with the COVID-19 pandemic. A small virus has been enough to uncover once more that blessed common belonging, says Pope Francis, of which we cannot be deprived, our belonging as brothers and sisters. We are joined in a common fate, and we can only survive if we collaborate for the common good, eagerly accepting the fact of being dependent on each other, if we accept that everything is connected. This is the points I am going to explain. First, I will talk about an essentialist anthropology that blocks communication. So the anthropological conception that is behind our way of thinking today. In the first part of my presentation, I will analyze the essentialist anthropology that has led us to a conflicted vision of reality and to the current ecological crisis. In a second moment, I will offer some indications on the need to change this mentality in order to restore communication and integral ecology. I will assert also the important roles that the media can play in this regard. First of all, I will show you two sentences from Laudato Si that will summarize very well what I am trying to convey. The first one is taken from number 118. There can be no ecology without an adequate anthropology. So if we want to change our mentality, we have to change our way of seeing a human being. Second sentence taken from Laudato Si. The need to overcome the unhealthy dualisms that left a mark on certain Christian thinkers in the course of history. We are going to analyze these dualisms that still are present and that are blocking our way of looking at things. In Western culture, the relationship between humans and the environment has been interpreted usually from the viewpoint of an anthropocentric ideology. With modernity, this perspective receives new impetus to the point of defending the absolute dominion of man over nature and over his own body. In the 19th century, scientism reinforces still further this anthropocentrism, as it replaces ethical rationality with instrumental rationality, thus giving way to the technocratic paradigm and the throwaway culture. The current socio-environmental crisis is a consequence of that essentialist anthropology that divides man internally and separates him from the other living beings. It is necessary to assume an integral anthropology, overcoming, and I am quoting, such unhealthy dualisms that left a mark on certain Christian thinkers in the course of history.
Father, can I stop a minute? Do you have a PowerPoint that you want to show, or is that not possible at this time?
I am not showing that. I thought I was, okay, let's see.
You would share your screen below.
I thought I was sharing that.
No, Father, you have to start sharing the screen so we can see your PowerPoint. I hope that the connection is good to do it.
Okay. Is it okay?
It's coming.
No. Okay, good.
Now it's good.
Good.
Okay. So this is the points I am going to explain. First of all, I will assert that we have to overcome the essentialist anthropology that is blocking communication. This essentialist anthropology is based on two dualisms, Antic dualism and ontological dualism. These dualisms that has stressed the separation between the human beings and the rest of creation has led us to the domination and the throwaway culture. Okay, sorry about that. Western philosophy has appealed to creation or evolution to develop an essentialist anthropological conception that emphasizes the separation between the human being and all other creatures. The thesis of human exception postulates an Antic rupture between the human being and the rest of creation, which would belong to another order of being. Consequently, the human being does not attribute any rights to animals and does not feel obliged by any duties towards them. He even considers nature as pure neutral matter without any intrinsic value, totally available at his disposal. So we have to overcome this kind of anthropological conception. The thesis of human exception, that we are exceptional, is based not only on the Antic and ontological dualisms, but also on the exclusive human capacity to access epistemic and ethical knowledge in ways that are out of reach for all other creatures. According to Schaeffer, the major form of this theory, so this theory that asserts that we are completely over the other creatures, that we are different, that there is a separation, a neat separation between the human being and the rest of creation, and also a neat separation between the body and the soul. Schaeffer speaks about the major forms of this theory, and he says there are three. First, philosophical. Man is considered an ego, that's to say, a subject, radically autonomous and founder of his own being. Therefore, human identity does not depend on biological or social life. Second form, social. Human identity is substantiated in the social. The human being is considered non-natural or even unnatural. Biological life would be only the substratum of humanity. Third form of this theory, cultural. The real human identity is based on culture, which shows humans' capacity of creating symbolic systems. That cultural transcendence is opposed to nature and to the social. So these are the three main forms of this theory. This theory that from Asian Greece asserts that we humans are different, that we are separated from the rest of creation. Antic dualism was already present in ancient Greece. I think I have already explained. Antic is the separation between the human being and the rest of creation. Ontological is the separation between the body and the spiritual and the soul. So ontological is inside the human being. Antic is between the human being and the rest of beings. Antic dualism was already present in ancient Greece, where man was supposed to bring order, that's to say cosmos, out of chaos, both in things and inside himself, through an always painful and difficult relationship with natural forces and with his own body. The human being is seen as an essentially different being from the other animals, because he is endowed with the logos, word, reason, while all other living creatures are irrational, and their actions do not belong and do not go beyond the level of instincts or habits. The ancient Greeks consider that the physis, nature, to be a fundamental ethical principle, and therefore they defended that the laws of nature must be respected. So this is a difference between the Greeks and the modern vision of nature. They had more respect for nature. Whereas modern man tends to see himself as the absolute master of nature. For Greeks, the physis, nature, was to be respected, even if they consider that human being was above it in many aspects. Besides, the Greek physis encompasses everything, human beings and gods, and is eternal, circular. It is not linked to the gratuity of a creative act. So the ontological dualism was already present in Greece. Centuries later, René Descartes accentuates that dualistic separation. Descartes had already said that the body of each animal is a machine made by God. So it is just a machine, like any other machine, only that a more perfect machine. And so it is incomparably better arranged and possesses in itself movements which are much more admirable than any of those which can be invaded by men. I am quoting Descartes. So this is, it may be curious. For Descartes, animals were just machines, subject to different laws, that of dynamics. In line with the Cartesian epistemology, the Enlightenment movement, which began at the end of the 17th century, asserts that reason is the essence of the human being, res cogitans. And so he is clearly different from the rest of the universe. The rest of the universe will be res extensa. Humans are rational and free, whereas all non-human creatures respond to the rigid laws of dynamics. The animals will be like machines, irrational, and determined by biological mechanisms. The world is not seen as a communion of subjects, but as a bunch of objects, described in mathematical and geometric terms. More specifically, it is defined as a clock, machine, workshop, experiment. To understand its operation, it is enough to consider the principles of matter and movement. The works of Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz, among others, reinforced this mechanical model of the world, mechanical model, that is observed and perceived in a functionalist and a utilitarian way. So a human being is in front of machines that he can do with them what they like, because at the end is just another machine the human being has built. Henri Bergson affirms that the thesis of human exception, that we are exceptional, different, is the archetype of modern philosophy, at least from the Copernican revolution onwards. So this is very important. If this is the basis of the philosophy that has shaped our Western culture, it's not strange that we have arrived to the ecological crisis. So we, in this situation, we have to think about it. We have to change our mentality. Mental ecology, says the Pope, goes first, must accompany any other initiative in the ecological field. Schaeffer, in 2007, announced the end of human exception because the socio-environmental crisis is forcing us to change our way of conceiving nature and relating to it. We are in a crisis, a big crisis, socio-ecological and now health crisis. So in this crisis, we have to think about our preconceptions, our mentality. The same has been done all along history. For instance, I don't know if you have studied a crisis, financial crisis that started in Florence the year 1341, when a credit bubble burst. That economic financial crisis was on for more than 30 years. In the midst of that economic crisis, the Black Death spread in Europe from the year 1347 onwards. That pandemic killed a third of the European population and forced people to revise the way they saw reality and the human person. In those critical moments, the Franciscan friars invited people to humbly recognize their own fragility and to strengthen collaboration at all levels. Crisis, as you know, in Chinese, it is usually said that it has two elements. A crisis is a moment of danger because we can perish, we can suffer a lot, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to revise our mentality, to revise the way we see nature, the way we see ourselves, the way we see our world. In the 20th century, after the enormous trauma of the two world wars, authors like Martin Buber and Emmanuel Levinas tried to identify the terrible mistake of Western culture that had led to the Holocaust. They concluded that Western philosophy had to be reformulated to avoid a similar tragedy in the future. So the crisis in 1341 forced people to revise their conceptions. The crisis after the First World War and the Holocaust also pushed people to revise their philosophical conceptions. Because if we don't go to the basis of it, anything will change. The numerous technological advances, photography, cinema, radio, of the Belle Epoque, seem to confirm the apparent supremacy of Western civilization, which would have already reached a high peak of excellence, according to Darwin's theory of evolution. However, it was there, in the Western culture, that the worst of all barbarism broke out. So Levinas, for instance, who was a Hebrew, so he suffered very much as everybody else, but he especially attributes the sociocultural collapse to a tremendous error of Western philosophy that had placed the thinking self at the center of reality and had subordinated everything else to him. Instead, Levinas insists on putting the you at the center, letting him remain absolutely other. So that was what happened after the Second World War. Now we are in another huge crisis, and we have to revise our mentality. So I think we have to revise this conception of the humans as completely different, this ontological and ontic dualism. Ontic dualism is also behind the disembodied spiritualism that avoids any personal involvement in the solution of social and ecological problems. Instead of trying to change the structures of injustice and domination, it appeals to resignation in front of the inevitable evils of this valley of tears. It also accentuates a hierarchical and dualistic vision of reality. The material world will be an obstacle that has to be overcome because it blocks our pilgrimage and hinders our ascent towards God. Rather than coordinating, it insists on subordinating, on subjugating. So even the material part of our body should be subordinated because it is a problem for us, for our spiritual dimension. The path to holiness would demand to subdue the body with its sensuality and to deprecate all human things. So up to now, we have seen the Antic dualism that needs separation between humans and the rest of creation. We have to overcome this. The rest of creatures are not machines, as very often it has been said or assumed. Ontological dualism distinguishes clearly between the body and the spiritual rational dimension of man. The latter would be the most authentically human, and therefore the body should be subordinated to it. The human being is described using multiple oppositional pairs: body-soul, rationality-affectivity, need-freedom, nature-culture, instinct-morality, etc., but always these contrasting pairs. Francis of Assisi had to face the ontological dualism that was very present in his time. For example, among the Cathars. This heretical Manichaean and Gnostic movement despised everything visible and material, including the human body, which would have been created by Satan, the evil god of the Old Testament. The human soul would belong to a completely different realm, as it would have been created by the good God of the New Testament. Consequently, the Cathars deprecated the body as an undesirable prison for the soul and as something material, completely alien to it. In this picture, I am showing you, you can see where the Cathars were spread at those times. Later on, Descartes makes a net separation between the rational soul and the body. The first would be the essence of the human being, who is characterized by his ability to think, while his body would be a material addition that does not differ substantially from those of animals. So if animals were machines, our body is also a kind of machine. Both dimensions of the human being come into contact through the pineal gland, says Descartes. Mon âme, par laquelle je suis, ce que je suis, est entièrement et véritablement distincte de mon corps. The emphasis of one of these two elements, body, soul, will give rise to two opposing trends in the understanding of the human being: idealism and materialism, both characterized by strong dualism. Idealism, you can think of Hegel, for instance, focuses on rationality and neglects the corporeal dimension. On the other hand, materialism, you can think of Feuerbach, Marx, and other authors, reduces man to the materiality of his body, considering the body as a mere cosmic element. In fact, the modern anthropocentric affirmation and the Enlightenment optimism coexist with reductionist anthropologies that deny the spiritual dimension of the human being and declares him a necessary prisoner of both his impulses and social conditioning. The human being will be fully understood by observing his explicit behavior using the stimulus-response method, as he always reacts in a reflexive mode to the environmental stimuli. So you see how this ontological dualism also degrades the material part of ourselves, of our body. Aristotle had affirmed that some people are slaves by nature or condition of soul. Slavery and colonizing imperialism were also justified by denying that the barbarians and the discovered Indians had a soul. So if the soul is that specifically human, those who were supposed not to have a soul, at the beginning it was said that, so that they could be enslaved. Also, those children that are born without the superior part of the brain, the anencephalic, can be used for to donate organs because they are not specifically human. So this ontological dualism has big consequences. The ontological dualism keeps being very present today. Frequently, the body is seen as an object to be possessed and manipulated as at will. For example, something that we must shape and control because it can hinder the development of our own identity. The different kinds of arbitrary domination over one's own body, says Laudato Si, turns often subtly into thinking that we enjoy absolute power over creation. It will be interesting also to analyze how we have understood spirituality, using those metaphors that are more common, the ascent into the mountain and the pilgrimage. Many times we have understood that in a dualistic way, because we have this mentality behind. Okay, so this Antic dualism and ontological dualism has led us to the domination and throwaway culture. Antic and ontological dualism have fostered the tyrannical anthropocentrism, the technocratic paradigm, and the throwaway culture. Even human rights, which should empower our intrinsic capacity for the nation, have been reduced to mere defensive barriers that protect the individual from the other human wolves. So everybody's a wolf. That image you have in the screen made it illustrative. Homo homini lupus. Every one of us is a wolf. We are not a person that we can trust. So this has led to a dichotomic conception of reality. Even human rights are just barriers because the others are wolves. We have to protect ourselves. In a Christian perspective, human rights should be, first of all, a way of empowering us to donate ourselves. Also to protect us, because the sin exists, but that's not the most important thing. Also, when we think about why we enter into society, to any kind of societies, liberal thinkers say because we need it, because we are interested. Christian anthropology, that it's not dualistic, says we enter into society because we have so much to give. Because we, only by donating ourselves, we become fully what we already are. Georges Maritain had explained this very well. The poor and abandoned, along with our sister Mother Earth, suffer the consequences of this distorted and Promethean anthropocentrism that exalts self-sufficiency and despises everything that is fragile and weak. On a subjective level, this concept of the self has led to a compulsive consumerism, which reduces everything to irrelevance, that is, to a bunch of products compulsively used and hastily thrown away. Thus, it has favored the thrown away culture, which affects the excluded just as it quickly reduces things to rubbish, says Laudato Si. Even labor has been reduced to a commodity with no more value than the salary it provides. Having forgotten irrelational dimensions, labor has also lost its Christian sense of joyful encounter with nature in collaboration with God's created work. So work, labor, that should be a way of donating ourselves, is becoming just a way of getting a salary, something merchified, something commercialized. Okay, so I think that this is the theoretical basis of that has led us to our ecological crisis.
Bob, you have about 10 more minutes to share with us what you prepared. Okay.
Okay, 10 more minutes. Okay, fine.
Thank you.
The current epidemic has highlighted the need for an interior ecology and a universal fraternity. The COVID-19 virus knows no boundaries, no social classes, no other type of division or limit. Any stranger I meet on the street is bound to me so closely that he or she could be essential to my own survival. The same can be said about the rest of creatures. The current epidemic has highlighted the need for an integral ecology and a universal fraternity. The COVID-19 virus knows no boundaries. So nature is a web of life. Everything is interconnected in it. Interaction and communication are constitutive aspects of the entire ecosystem. But to say this, we have to change our anthropological conception. We have to overcome those dualisms. Nature is a network of relationships and the human person. Created in the image of the Trinitarian God, is also a dialogical and relational person. Being in relationship is not an option, but an unavoidable requirement, both for us and for other creatures. In some way, all human activities can be interpreted as processes of relationship, communication, and interaction. At the beginning of everything is communication. Before anything existed, there was already communication between Father, Son, and Spirit. Everything has been created for communication, and that's our destiny. Much scientific data confirms that in nature, collaboration prevails over struggle, and unity is greater than conflict. And I think that's a key point. We have Darwinism in our minds because we have a dualistic anthropology. Lynn Margulis, for instance, questions the Darwinian concept of evolution and affirms that collaboration has been more decisive than aggressive competition. Life did not take over the globe by combat, but by networking. Life forms multiplied and complexified by co-opting others, not just by killing them. The numerous forms of symbiosis and dependence among different organisms are a good example of this collaboration that has made evolution possible. This is a completely change of what we have usually been said. We also share with other beings the same physical chemical substratum and a good part of our genetic code. Even inside the human body, the bacterial flora helps us to digest and protect us from other harmful microorganisms. Therefore, it is necessary to strengthen the awareness of our common origin, of our belonging, and of a future to be shared with everyone. When I put a number between parentheses, brackets, it is from Laudato Si. So Laudato Si 202. In other words, we need to promote a holistic perspective which emphasizes the relationship and interdependencies that exist among all beings, including us. We believe in the Trinity. Our conception of reality should not be shaped on conflict, but on collaboration. Even if conflict exists, because sin also exists. The encyclical Laudato Si invites us to assume an integral ecology, which considers the interactions within natural systems themselves and with social systems. Indeed, all beings are linked by unseen bonds.
Sheila, I think we have lost the speaker. Sheila, are you here?
I'm here. Let me take that again. We're going to.
I think it disappeared.
Yes, maybe it's Saturday that the difficulty, but we're having some difficulty with these connections. So we're very happy for your patience with us. Talk about communication and what we have to deal with at this time. So we're grateful for Father's presentation in terms of his ability to use the history to put us in the present, and to realize now with Pope Francis, we're just after a economic crisis, now the severity of COVID, really encompassing the whole world. And then we're having this commission put together by him with the different task groups, putting together information, reflecting on the situations in order to say, can we go a different way once we are saying the crisis is over to a certain extent. So history repeats itself, and we really want to thank Father for the presentation that he's given. It's been very, very stimulating. So what we will want to do at this point, hold your questions. That's going to be very important when we have a section to ask questions and to comment on what we've been able to share with you this morning. So we have a 15-minute break. So what we would like you to do is look at your clock, because we are all over the globe in terms of participants, and come back then in 15 minutes. Get your coffee, get whatever you would need, and we'll continue on. And as you saw, we will continue with Sister Bernadette, who really works with the Vatican media, and she will be sharing with us some very important information for us to attend to because of her rich background and her ability to really help us see directions that need to be taken. So 15 minutes right now from your clock, and hope to have you back with us. God bless. Just do the best we can.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's Friday. I think it's because it's Saturday. The connection is too many. I don't know. But thank you for your work and your patience, for sure, this time.
Oh, it's very strange. Yesterday we had 400 people, 450 people online. So I think it depends on the Saturday, or also the weather. I don't know. It's very strange. Anyway.
But what is funny, it's only, I think, the father was in Rome. In which country he was? Sheila, you're on mute.
He's in Rome. He's in Rome.
Because people.
Floranza, stop sharing, stop live Facebook, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
Because in the other countries, in Africa, they have good connection. So it's only in Rome.
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly right.
It's interesting.
It's interesting, yes.
Anyway. Okay, we go to have a coffee.
Mhm.
Flo, you can restart the live Facebook when we start with Bernadette, okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
I think I forgot to start it before. I did everything and I
Okay, it doesn't matter.
was
We do
late.
what we can.
Yeah, it's all, we can only do what we can. I mean, for me, it's the same thing. I had excellent cover yesterday, and today it's the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's Rome.
Sheila, do you have the presentation of both speakers?
I
No, I can't hear you, your microphone.
I have the written presentation of both speakers. I have, yes, I have the written presentation.
Do you think we can publish? Your microphone is off, Sheila?
Yes, I think we could ask them that.
Okay.
I don't know with Father, he is, I don't know if it's something he's going to be published in another, venue. I don't know. We could ask him, but I have his written talk.
Okay.
And I also have Sister Bernadette's written talk.
Okay, let me know, because I'm realizing that sisters, despite the video, prefer also to have the text. Sometimes they can share it easily with their congregations, their community members. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's it. It's the PowerPoints that are more, ask that, because those are designed specifically for their use and continued use and for their use.
Yeah.
So,
and the Father's book is very difficult to find it. I tried. I think it's Spanish.
It's in Spanish. That's why it was difficult. I tried to find it too, and it is in Spanish.
But it's no, I can read the Spanish, but the problem is to buy it. I think they have it just in the Antonianum.
It could be. That could be it.
So perhaps we can ask him if there is a possibility to. It's very interesting. I saw it weeks ago, but I tried to buy it.
Sorry, Patricia, it's me. I unmuted.
Yeah, I saw it. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Hello, Patricia.
Yes, welcome again.
I'll try again to test my share screen because I have problem earlier on. Can we do that now? Okay, so that.
Sure, let's try now. We have some minutes to make a test.
Okay, I'll share. Wait a minute. Okay. Share screen and
it's perfect. Now, okay. It works
okay?
very well.
All right.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Can you speak? Can you speak a little?
Hello, I'm okay. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, good.
Okay.
Father Martin arrived. Father Martin is on live. So I stop your sharing. Okay.
Yeah, for the people who had just arrived, we are taking 15 minutes of break. Para las personas que acaban de llegar, tenemos 15 minutos ahora, 10, casi 5 minutos de receso para tomar un cafecillo y volvemos. So for the people who had just accessed the meeting, we are having some minutes of break. And we will start again with Sister Bernadette. Father, you're back.
It seems so.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
So I just disappear from the screen.
That's right.
Oh.
Because when you lose the connection, is, so Sheila decided to take some minutes of break, and then we will continue with Sister Bernadette. And then perhaps during the QA session, you can say something else.
Okay, because it was just 5 minutes left for me. It was
yeah. Sorry for that. We will see once Sheila comes back. Father, just a question. Podemos hablar también en español. Y es difícil encontrar su libro.
Yeah.
¿Cómo podemos comprarlo? Porque no sé si en la universidad lo tienen unas copias. Ahora que podemos salir de casa, lo podemos comprar.
Sí, en la universidad tienen. Sí, aquí tienen. Porque sobre ecología tengo 3 libros. No sé, tal vez usted se refiera a todo está conectado.
Un poco lo que acaba de hablar usted durante esta charla, creo que, ¿no? Yo he visto ecología integral y comunicación.
Sí, todo está conectado, ecología integral y comunicación, sí. En ese libro intento poner en relación la ecología integral con la comunicación, por eso.
Por eso.
Sí, y el capítulo, lo que estoy diciendo corresponde básicamente a parte del capítulo 1 y del capítulo 5, me parece. Sí, parte de eso, no todo está allí, pero... Ese libro lo publicaron... Sí, aquí la librería del Antoniano estoy seguro que lo tiene.
¿Está abierta ahora?
Sí, creo que abrió.
Muy bien,
sí.
Perfecto. Pero no se encuentra en Amazon, por ejemplo, porque yo intenté comprarlo hace semanas y nada nos sale.
Sí, fue una sorpresa para mí, porque las Paulinas yo pensé que lo iban a tener disponible.
¿Son las mujeres, las Paulinas?
Sí.
Ok, entonces más fácil.
No tienen servicio, sí. De todas maneras,
entonces.
El libro está saliendo ya en francés, también en portugués. En portugués ya salió. En portugués está disponible. Yo creo que portugués está disponible también online, me parece. Y va a salir en inglés también y en polaco. En francés va a salir en septiembre, me han dicho, por Medias Pol, en Francia.
Ok.
En la India lo van a publicar para África, Oceanía y Asia. Lo va a publicar Media House. Y en Estados Unidos seguramente, o sea, estoy esperando, que me habían dicho que sí ya, Tau Publications.
Muy bien. La hermana Ela dice Ediciones Paulina Lima 2019. Creo que sería importante comentarlo esto, padre, después cuando tenemos las preguntas, porque para que la gente tenga una referencia, ¿sí?
Está bien, sí.
Gracias. Ay, mira que lo tenemos aquí.
He estado hablando toda la semana con Madrid. Todo ha funcionado bien, curiosamente hoy.
No, pero creo que es el sábado, porque también nosotras tenemos problemas. Entonces creo, y no solo usted, también Sheila, y durante la oración fue un poco raro, porque no se escuchaba bien. Creo que depende de la conexión, no sé. Bueno, gracias en todo caso.
The connections throughout the world are better than Rome. In Africa and South America, they're saying, oh, this is good. It's us.
I had a webinar some months ago when I was in California, and there was also problems. So some from other countries said, what is this possible? You are close to the center of technology. But anyway, you never know.
Father, they're asking if they can get the transcript. Now, you sent a transcript. Are we able to publish that for people? And they also asked about PowerPoint, but I don't know if you want that PowerPoint to go. But how are you?
No problem.
Both of them. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So we can also make the link that the sister Ella just sent on the chat, but there is no way to buy it in this link. That's what I see. So Ella, I don't know if you want to help us with something while we wait the other people coming.
Yeah, we have a few minutes yet.
Ella, you have the possibility to unmute your microphone and explain us if you want. I don't know where she is.
Espera, ahora no hables.
Hola.
¿Puedo hablar en español?
Sí.
Claro, claro, lo
Vale.
vamos a traducir.
Lo estoy mirando, estaba ahora buscando en el internet por el título y la OFM. Entonces,
Claro.
por lo que veo, allí estaba lo de la presentación del libro,
Sí.
la información, y a lo mejor en la página de Perú, de las Paulinas de Perú, se puede.
Claro,
Ahora lo estoy
claro.
mirando.
Bueno, gracias. Pero en todo
De nada.
caso, las que estamos en Roma podemos ir en la universidad, pero para quien lo quiere comprar, ya sabemos que las Paulinas ya lo puede entregar. Bueno. Muchas gracias, hermana.
Martin, I think it's really interesting that you raise up the importance of the Franciscans right after the terrible tragedy with the economic downturn, Florence, whatever, and then the Black Plague. And we're having the same thing happen now. So it's, thank you for that, with your historical background for doing that.
I think that crisis, according to me, was the more similar crisis
Yes.
to the current one.
Yeah.
And the reaction of the Franciscans that, according to many authors, they gave a big contribution to the new market economy, not capitalism.
Yeah, right.
Market, social market economy.
Yeah, yeah.
It was decisive, stressing the importance of community.
Yeah.
Ties. So I think that is very illustrative also for today. I think so.
Is there something a resource to go to get that information that you just described?
I published a book about that.
You did?
I published a book that is also in 6 languages, I think. So about economy. If you look at I can show to you my web page. There you can find all the references. So maybe I can show that.
The reason why I'm asking you is I'm on the task force for ecology. We're not really publicizing all that, but the part we're working on in the next few days is politics and new paradigms.
So here, for instance, you can see Todo está conectado is that book we are talking about that is in Portuguese.
Yeah.
This one is in German, Schwester, Mutter, Erde.
Oh, yeah.
This is the one about economy.
There it is.
In fraternal economy. This one speaks about how the Franciscans in those times gave a big contribution trying to overcome the socio-economical crisis that started there.
Oh, wow.
Curiously enough, the Black Death helped to overcome the economic crisis because many people died. A third of European.
Right.
So that helped to overcome the crisis, but it was also a terrible. The years it lasted, it was also terrible. This book is also here in Italian and in Spanish, Crisis Economica.
Okay.
This is the back.
Is it available at the Antonianum?
Yes, I think so too. But it is also available online. This one is online, but at the Antonianum too.
Okay.
Here is in Polish. This one is in Polish.
Okay.
So there are in different languages.
Okay, online, that's great. I want to go there. Yeah. This is wonderful. Oh, so I think we better bring people back here. Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
All right. We should be admitting everybody. The question is, Father, is your book on the economy in English? I thought I saw that there. And is it online, did you say?
It used to be. Certainly, in English, it is published in 2 different editorial houses. one in the States that it was online a month ago. I have not checked just now. I suppose it keeps being online. Also in Media House in India, they also send the book all over the world. So these two editorial houses can offer it.
Thank you. All of you that are present now.
Sheila, just a second. I don't think Marilu is translating, so I think we have to make sure that she's back. Marilu, are you here? Okay, perfect.
I'm here.
Okay, all right. And people need to check, make sure they have the correct language, because when we went off, we stopped everything, so they need to do that. So, okay, we're back here with one another in communion with this important issue of the intro-ecology. Father Munoz was kind of cut off. We're having difficulties in Rome with the internet connection, but when we have the other two speakers, Father will then kind of give a summary of what he wanted to say and did not have the opportunity to do that. So that's an important conclusion from his talk. So I would like to now go on with Sister Bernadette, who is our next speaker. And we find her right here. And she, let me, so I can read my own things. She belongs to the Daughters of St. Paul. She's from California, United States. She holds a bachelor's in English and Spanish literature from the Emmanuel College in Boston. And she's worked in mass media for almost 40 years, but you know, you can't see that by looking at her. She started when she was young to do this. She works in the Vatican Dicastery for Social Communication and the Vatican News. Those of you who are English speakers, you often hear her voice for Pope Francis, particularly during all these morning masses, but also for the Angelus and many other occasions. She coordinates all of the English program then for the Vatican, works with the journalists on themes, on web, social media, strategy analysis. And she really coordinates various events. So she's responsible for our lead in terms of communication. And with all of the complex issues that are coming from the church, she is the one that is helping us to see and to understand what's happening and what is essential for us to know going forward. So communication in the mass media, I give to you now, Sister Bernadette.
Thank you.
I have to stop. Okay.
And I have to say it's providential that I'm following on the previous presentation, because I will be touching on exactly the points, not going into the detail, but I will be going into the points that were already brought up. So it's a really good segue, I think. So what I'd like to do is start by looking at what's at stake. It's a question we need to ask, and then if we can respond to that question, we can begin to understand the difficulty that we have in communicating our message regarding the care for creation. And now I'll try to share my screen here. So Pope Francis has alluded to what's at stake many, many times. He's often said something similar to, unless we do something now, it's going to be too late. And so that stake then is not only a future for the earth, but a future for everything living on the earth, and that means us too. And this is an extremely high stake. So unless, as we heard in the previous presentation, unless things change drastically now, the future does look pretty dim. And to illustrate this, I'd like to tell a story. that I heard from a bishop in the Philippines. This is going back to November 1999. So this just tells you how impressed I was. I found myself in the Philippines for a conference on the economical aspect of our mission. And this bishop impressed me, two things that he said. The first thing that he said, and it looks like we are having a, whoops. The first thing that he said that really impressed me, that is, whenever we go into a territory that's never been evangelized, that we, like Moses, need to remove our sandals because the ground that we are on is holy, because Christ is already present there. And I remember being extremely impressed by that statement. It had been something that I had never been presented with before, and I'm deeply grateful for him because of that. So that means any place on earth is holy, and this must strike deep into our Christian consciences. The second story that he told is of a group of Christian missionaries who were being led by pagan scouts on their way to a missionary destination. And they stopped when they got to a grove of mango trees, and everybody started picking the luscious fruit. And the indigenous pagans, I put that in quotes, were ready to leave. And they were really surprised because the people that they were leading, quote unquote Christian missionaries, were packing their sacks full of the fruit. And they asked the missionaries, but what are you doing? And of course, the missionaries, well, what else are we doing? We're taking stuff so that we have something to eat later on. Of course, they were taking all the ripe fruit. Well, their quote unquote pagan guides said to them, well, why are you doing that? If you take all the ripe fruit, what will be left for the people who will pass by later? I'll never forget that story. And that tells us exactly, in a micro setting, the macro picture, what is at stake. Literally, people will not have things to eat if I hoard everything for myself, if we as a generation right now deplete our earthly resources. So we have a concrete image, a concrete story that we can go to represent this global stake. If we don't do something right now with our common home, we may not be able, in fact, we can't right now. 4 million people in the first 3 months, Pope Francis cited this the other day in a homily, have died because of hunger. This is another pandemic. This does require drastic change. Now, it's hard enough for people to change in little ways. It's very difficult, let alone drastically. So what is the challenge for us as communicators? That we can communicate in such a way that people will be able to ask themselves the question and affect the change that we would like them to create, not only in their own lives, but also in the community at large. What about
I'm going to have you slow down just a little bit. Your enthusiasm is getting the better of you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, how can we communicate in such a way that people that we come in contact with our message will want to change? That they will recognize that Christ is present in every corner of the globe, in every creature on the globe, and therefore recognize that every corner of the globe is holy ground. A ground which cannot be desacralized for any reason whatsoever. And a second reason is so that we help ourselves only to what we need, trusting in God's providence. That later down the road, just as those mango trees became present to us at the right moment, there will be something else that will provide for our needs. So this means we need to be very, very crafty in crafting our message. And in order to do that, we need to understand the philosophy. And this is why our first presentation was so, so very helpful. We've got to understand the horrible philosophies that we've been fed, that we need to respond to, correct the record. And unfortunately, these are also some philosophies that have contributed to some very poor theology and mentalities that have also been embraced by Catholics, by Christians. So for me, the quintessential event that will help us understand the philosophy behind those who stand for exactly the opposite of what we stand for is the communication that happened around Pachamama. Now, I'm sure some of you were wondering when I was going to get there. Let's see if we can get there. Here we go. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the event that took place in the Vatican Gardens last October 4th. It was the opening of the Synod of Bishops on the Pan-Amazon region, which of course was then dedicated to Saint Francis of Assisi. And because it took place in the presence of this statue that we see before us, which came to be called the Pachamama, it was never officially identified that way. There were all kinds of accusations about idolatry, and it created a communication tragedy that, I'll put it this way, the Vatican never got out of and still hasn't gotten out of. And I can't avoid not bringing this up. Much of what I am presenting today is because I've learned from this tragedy. I was involved as an advisor a communication advisor during the Synod, and saw everything that was going on. First of all, this event hijacked the Synod. And so all of the other things that were said about the care, not only for the planet, but also for the indigenous Amazonian people, it was hijacked by this one particular event. So what went wrong? For me, it's all about meaning. It's about significance. Communicators, the call of a communicator is to interpret for people when things are foreign for them. We provide the language that unwraps the code, the symbol. We interpret for people what's foreign to them. And if we don't give people the meaning behind the symbol, behind the code, behind the liturgy, they will create their own meaning. And that's what happened. So let's get back to Pachamama, because there's even more, in my opinion. Let's see, I don't know why we're not moving forward here. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute and fix this on my own screen. Go ahead. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, how are we now? Okay.
Perfect.
This is good.
Okay, so let's get back to Pachamama. About midway in the Synod, someone took these images that had been in a church near St. Peter's and threw them into the Tiber River. But what's the real significance of that action? We need to ask ourselves that. Again, if we're going to interpret reality, what is the real significance behind that action? Was it just that someone robbed a statue and threw it into the water? Is it only to be evaluated that a quote-unquote idol was thrown into the river without any further significance to us as Christians? In my opinion, the significance of throwing this statue into the river is huge. It's like one of those Freudian or Jungian motifs, you know, the mythic image that we're dealing with that shows a psyche, a culture. So what actually happened? In my opinion, if we contemplate this statue, it's one of the most sacred images that we could ever have on earth. We're talking about a woman bearing life. And the significance that she's touching the earth is extremely important. It's a beautiful image. And it was thrown away, discarded. So if we think in terms of our throwaway culture, what was really being thrown away? An expectant woman. What is more sacred on earth? In my opinion, this image is none other than the same in the book of Revelation, where the woman about to give birth has a dragon at her feet ready to devour her child. This is the mystery that I believe was lived on that day. And it's horrific. What is worse is that this action was done by a quote-unquote devout Catholic, that he was lauded for his actions, that he was paraded through the US like a hero, and that all the huge Catholic pro-life groups commended him for his action. This is what is at stake. This is what we're dealing with. So, I've lost Zoom. Here we go. Okay. So, why am I linking this event with the need to be smart about crafting our message? It's because we as Catholics have been fed with a lot of these philosophies and bad theologies that have actually created this fundamentalist mindset. They believe God is on their side due to past teachings in the church. And in my opinion, the church's record in some aspects needs to be revisited and in some cases corrected. It's true about issues regarding ecology, and it's just as true because it's exactly the same philosophical undergirdings that have created problems with the place of women. And that's why these two are connected. Okay, let's see if I can go back. Okay, yeah, it's not responding the second time. That's what's happening. So, what aspect of the church's teaching needs to be reconsidered? The philosophical understanding about inanimate creation that was unfortunately picked up by Thomas Aquinas. And because Thomas Aquinas has been canonized, that gave the assumption that all of his teaching is also canonized. along with all of the other philosophies that we've heard. But unfortunately, when you canonize someone in the Catholic Church, it does a lot more harm, especially if their philosophies were not exactly correct. But the Thomistic philosophies need to put together with Franciscan, which is our Holy Father's leaning, but also especially with a previous theology, one that's more grounded in revelation and closer to our Christian roots, and that is from Paul, of course, the understanding of the cosmic Christ. In fact, the creed itself, we profess this every Sunday. We say, and we say it devoutly, that through Christ, all things have been made. Every church-going Catholic prays this, proclaims it on Sunday. And every Easter vigil, we hear again how God's word spoke and things were made. Yet the fact that creation is God's first word spoken, his first act of revelation, has not been developed in popular theology. Pope Francis is gradually introducing this as he reminds us that when we destroy creation, we are in fact destroying God's word. Using arguments, for example, that God's same word creates all of creation. God spoke, and the sun, the earth, the stars, snakes, grass, even mosquitoes, and I have something about mosquitoes, but he made those too. This is something we have to consider. So whenever we damage creation, we're desecrating the Word of God in the same way that we desecrate a Bible. It's exactly the same thing. This should have profound implications then on the way we harvest food, on the way we herd cattle, etc. So there's a lot to be explored in this area in terms of the popular Catholic imagination and our relationship with nature and creation. I believe we can also appeal to the Eucharist. Why? Jesus is present in the inanimate matter of bread and wine. So leaving the philosophical aspects behind, can we allow the mystery to speak to us and therefore develop certain ways of communicating well our message to those people who have a Catholic grounding and who find nourishment in the Eucharist? For example, God in Jesus first clothes himself with our nature. Then he clothes himself under the appearance of bread and wine. And through tradition, it's believed that he's also left his image on at least 2 pieces of cloth: Veronica's veil and the shroud. So if we contemplate what this, again, meaning, we have to make meaning. What is the meaning? The meaning that I've received is, since all things have been created in Christ, and because he has entered into relationship with ourselves by assuming our nature and by entering into these appearances of bread and wine and at times leaving his image on these cloths, he can potentially enter into relationship with anything that's created, because everything has been created through him. And he does so according to the specific nature of each created being. This is phenomenal, but it has extreme moral repercussions. So, why am I starting then with these philosophical and theological concepts? Because it's philosophy that creates ideas and mentalities. that are used then to communicate on mass scales. They create symbol. And as with any other area, we need to find common ground on which to construct our arguments. We have to be very, very, very smart. So, for example, that might mean appealing to Pope Benedict or John Paul II, whose message is exactly the same as Pope Francis, but if we use Pope Francis with some audiences, we're just going to turn people off. We have to fit our communication to each audience, and that can be very difficult. We may even need to appeal to Thomas Aquinas at times, but even Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, I remember hearing once that he believed that any creature who was a part of our achieving our eternal reward would be with us in heaven. So there are aspects of Thomas we can appeal to. The biggest challenge, therefore, of communicating in an ecological message in the digital age is crafting the message. That's the first. And how to spread that message is the second biggest challenge. And I'll give you some bullet points now. I'm going to try to share my screen again, but I'm just going to change it first since I know I'm having problems. Okay. Okay. So I really believe that as groups working in this area, networking is, and we heard about how, you know, the universe itself has been networking from day one to create the marvels that we see today. We need to network. And I really do believe that if we network, we'll be able to reach many, many more people with our message. Let me just see if I can, whoops. I'm sorry, that wasn't supposed to go, but anyway, I'll just go ahead. So networking is absolutely important, and Raypalm, I think, is a really good example of this, but we need to do it a lot more, and we need to become more effective in not only networking in superficial ways, but networking and communicating our message. Other things we need to do are create communication plans. We really do need to plan. That's really huge, and that may mean communicating overarching plans over various networks or different organizations in a network. We need to make use of free media whenever we can by attracting journalists. That's absolutely important because they've got a bigger market that we can't pay for. It's just out of our budget most of the time. What does that mean? It means we need to create press releases. It means that we need to craft events that they will want to cover. It means creating relationships with people in the press. It means having people prepared and who can be media personalities. You've got to have attractive people, not just physically, but also in how they prepare and package their message in order to give interviews. If we're working in the church, you know, case in point, the synod, it may mean having a crisis communication plan in place. It also means being creative and using popular culture. We need to allow our younger generations to help us with this. There's no doubt about that. But even including things like fiction, film, and songwriting. These are some things I think we often overlook, but can have a much larger public than we can probably do on our own. Fiction, people who can foresee what's going to happen in 20 years if we're not careful. Film, you know, why not try to get a major blockbuster out there? You know, try to see, there's Act One in Hollywood that works with Catholic and Christian screenwriters, you know, that could be a wonderful way to go. And songwriters, how do we start getting our message, you know, so that people start singing ecological tunes instead of destructive ones, you know, while they're in their car waiting at the stoplight, you know, let's get creative. Now you know what I do when I'm watching it, when I'm waiting at a stoplight. Anyway, and then I'd like to end though by ending the way that I began, and that is with the bishop who was so influential to me in the Philippines that, you know, 21 years later, I still remember what he said. I don't remember anything else, but I remember what he said. So first of all, the creative application of scripture to a current crisis, and a believable application, not something that is superficial, one that really can capture the Catholic Christian imagination. The other is storytelling. He told a story, and that's why it still sticks with me. We need to tell stories. Stories very often capture people's attention much, much more than do's and don'ts and lists of commandments and morals, et cetera, et cetera. So how can we creatively do that together? I think in the church in general, and perhaps in our communication about ecological issues, it's what we're lacking is stories. We need to tell the story of actual people and how their lives are being devastated because of our choices. And we need to show the people who are affected, for example, because of the gold that's being mined for our chalices, and ask the question, if God really wants blood gold that's going to be holding his blood, we have to ask these questions and present it as bluntly as that. So some of the takeaways, just to end, and then we may have some time for some questions, I'm not sure. Correcting the record is the first thing we need to do, forming our own ideas to create more convincing ones, to replace the awful ones that have been handed down to us in our Catholic tradition, networking, and being smart about how we communicate and craft our arguments with each audience.
So thank you, Sister Bernadette. You have taken us through many levels of understanding of ourselves, your own perception that you have to craft so carefully as you take the message, and you can be blunt about what it is that we have to look at, have us look at our stories, but we know that you're doing this all in the method of practice of prayer and contemplation, because that also comes through in the message that you speak.
Thank you.
We're going to wait until the end for the opportunity for people to comment and ask questions. So that's, so people, if you have something, please write that down so that we can have a really invigorating conversation when that time is available. I'd like to now introduce the last speaker, Father Armando Picardel, who is with myself in the office as the executive co-secretary. He has been there since January 7th, but with the the virus, we haven't had, you know, as much time to be together as we would have liked. But he is a Redemptorist from the southern Philippines. He holds a doctorate in theology from the Gregorian and a licentiate in theology from the Jesuit School of Theology from Berkeley in California. He was engaged in ministry and pastoral work, as well as promotion of basic ecclesial communities. He was a dean of academics and taught theology for 16 years in Davao. And he is a peace, human rights, and environmental activist and an intermittent hermit. He's written several books on ecology, basic ecclesial communities, and pastoral ministries, and on topics related to environmental praxis and social transformation. And as he says here, he's presently now working with our office for the JPIC Commission. So he's going to take us on a tour, a really invigorating tour with social media and what that means for us, affirming some of our practices, but also challenging us in many other ways. So Father Armando, please, we're ready to hear from you. Okay, we have you on screen.
Good morning. It's a good day to all, wherever you are. What I'm about to present is really a practical application of what Father Martin and Sister Bernadette have already started to explain. The title of this talk is Promoting Integral Ecology through Social Media. So this is something more practical, and it's an application of how we can promote integral ecology through social media. Earlier on in February, I was a resource person of a webinar on promoting justice, peace, and integrity of creation through social media. This one it will be focused on integral ecology, and this, of course, this one is going to be brief. Everything is interconnected. And this is what Pope Francis reminded us in Laudato Si 240. We can also say that we are all interconnected. And even during this lockdown, due to the pandemic, we continue to be interconnected. We do not feel isolated even if we stay at home, and we know what is happening everywhere, and we continue to communicate with members of our family, with friends, and converse. And this is possible through the internet and social media. This is possible because we are living in the digital era. The social media is the means and expression of our interconnectedness as human beings. According to the Pontifical Council for Social Communication, it has a remarkable capacity to overcome distance and isolation, bringing people into contact with like-minded persons of goodwill who join in virtual communities of faith to encourage and support one another. Through social media, we become part of social networks, virtual communities, and movements. You know, how many are involved in social media? How many are social media users? In 2010, that was 10 years ago, there were 970 million. And now we have almost 3 billion people from all over the world engaged in social media. Facebook, which is the most popular, have actually 2.5 billion users, 2.5 billion, and 1.7 billion of these are connected through their smartphones, meaning that we continue to bring with us this smartphone is in our pocket, and we continue to, some people even look at it 2 to 3 hours a day or even more. So the smartphone has become the constant means of communication and source of information. And the question is, why do people are in social media. Of course, according to Facebook, it connects us with friends and the world around us through Facebook. It's our means of being in contact, to be in connection with our friends and the world around us. We're able to see photos and updates and to share what is new in our life. That's what makes it very, very attractive. It's also where we get our latest news. We no longer have to read newspapers or even watch TV. We are no longer too dependent on mass media because we are able to create and share news and information, to report instantly what is happening and share our thoughts, feelings, and opinions. We join events as they're happening and report it ahead even of mass media. In short, we are actively participating in the creating and the sharing of news. Through social media, we can promote our advocacies and causes. It's not only a matter of just sharing our selfies or our cats, our dogs, or what we ate this morning. We can also promote our advocacies and causes and help transform our society and the world. You know, over the last 7 years or more, many of the changes that is happening, whether in the Middle East or other parts of the world, have been through what is called the social media revolution. So the social media can be used as a means to promote integral ecology, to make each one aware that we are interconnected, and to let each one hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, and to enable each one to go through a process of conversion and to move us to act together to address the ecological crisis, whether locally or globally. Question is, how do we go about it? Well, if we don't have one, open a social media account, and especially I would recommend Facebook. It is usually based on our existing email and phone contacts that the Facebook will teach us who to add as friends in our campus and conference. And later we can add others with whom we can network and collaborate in our GPIC advocacy and in the promotion of integral ecology. Clergy, religious, bishops, lay people, journalists. And oftentimes we will receive friend requests, which we may accept or reject. Of course, we have to be aware of trolls. And we can even expand our circle of virtual friends and followers. This is my first social media account, Facebook, which I created 12 years ago. I now have 3,300 friends. This one is a more recent one. The previous one was, most of my friends were based in the Philippines. And this one is, I just created it when I arrived here in Rome last January. I have now 450 friends, but this time most of them are religious from all over the world in different languages. And I did this in line with my work. So you can create more than one social media account if you want. Another important thing that we need to do is we can also open or follow Facebook page. The pages enable public figures, businesses and organizations, and other entities to create an authentic and public presence in the Facebook. It is the previous version of a website. The news and updates related to our advocacy can be posted here with accompanying images and videos. Articles or link to articles on our websites or blog sites can also be posted in our Facebook page. Of course, this is the Facebook page of the GPIC Commission in Rome. This needs to be further updated. And we even have, there's also the Mary Ward GPIC office. They have their own Facebook page. And this one is the Facebook page of the Vatican News. You don't have to go to the website of the Vatican. Just click follow, and then we will get the latest news feed from the Vatican. And of course, this is the Facebook page of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. Another one that I would recommend is that we can join a Facebook group or start one. A Facebook group is actually a network of individuals with common interests and concerns. You can link up with GPIC promoters and those concerned about the environment here. And in a Facebook group, there's more in-depth discussion or sharing of resources and even best practices. It is through the Facebook group that a virtual community or movement can develop by the members of the group. And this is what I would like to really emphasize. If you want to create a virtual community and virtual movement that has constant communication and sharing of news and information and dialogue, the Facebook group is the one that we need to really develop. It's really real time, and we can share what we are doing, our thoughts and feelings, and everything. This is the Franciscan GPIC Facebook group. And actually, they have over 2,800 members of that Facebook group from all over the world. And that you will know what each one is doing from various parts of the world. They post pictures, they post videos, they post news. This is the Global Catholic GCCM Myanmar Facebook group. And also you will get to know immediately what they are doing in Myanmar and how they communicate with each other. It is a virtual community. There are several types of Facebook group. There's what we call the public Facebook group, which is fully visible to everyone and anyone can join without being approved. All members' posts are fully visible to all other Facebook users. So this type of group does not have a sense of privacy and security that come with the more restricted group types. And it is the easiest group type for users to join and therefore grow quickly. You know, there are other various public groups. I'm a member of the group of the Pilgrims, Camino Pilgrims group. You know. There are over 10,000 of us who are part of that group, and there's constant sharing and communication. And now even I'm part of a Facebook group that we share what we call a virtual Camino. But there's also the so-called closed Facebook group that posts are only visible to members So there's a sense of being involved in an exclusive community. The group appears in Facebook searches. The description and members lists are visible to anyone on Facebook, but it doesn't offer complete privacy. But members can comfortable knowing that the posts that they share are only to members of the group. And all new membership requests must be approved by the existing member or administrator of the group. This is more exclusive. And this is a smaller group. But you can have as many as 20, 50, or 100. But this is a more in-group, where you have a more deeper sharing. But there's also a new feature that's been added to the Facebook, and this is that is an alternative to Zoom, and it's called the Facebook Messenger. Of course, if you have more than 50, you need to have Zoom. If you have, but if you want to, it's less than 50, you can communicate without cost and without time limit. It's both on your laptop and also on your smartphone. And of course, this is what the GPIC OFM have been doing. How they continue to communicate with one another to their Facebook group from all over the world. What about websites? Of course, we have our own website of the GPIC Roma, and of course, the Showing Hope for the Planet also have a website. Websites, there are a lot of discussion and debate whether our websites obsolete or can they still be useful. Because we can promote our websites through, we can promote our advocacy through websites, but the problem is that easy to develop, to maintain, and update. It's dependent on a webmaster. That's a problem. There must be a full-time webmaster, and it is static and it lacks interaction. And this is one of the problems of websites. There is no social networking. It lacks social networking, a regular communication interaction. You are dealing with a website. And the problem now is this less visited. Unless someone makes the effort to look it up, or you type a subject on a search engine and it leads you to your that website. And of course, that's why that 5 years ago, there were a lot of discussion already said that by 2020, websites will be obsolete, But question is, really? If linked to social media, they can still be useful. If not linked to social media, nobody will visit our website. The website can function as a repository for information, resources, reports, in-depth treatment of particular topics of articles, video, material, photos, and videos. And most studies, analysis, and documentation can be posted in our website. The search engines like Google can direct a person and find out about a particular topic to the website, or if we have a relevant material. News and updates and information about events can be posted in social media rather than websites and blog sites. Let us remember that social media is more dynamic and fluid and works in real time. It is interactive, so you can get an immediate feedback and response. If you post something, you get immediate response. You can even engage in dialogue. Whatever you post today will immediately be disseminated and shared. And so we should link the website with social media which directs the traffic to the website. And the social media can immediately inform virtual communities and groups what resources are available in our website. So the question is, what can be posted? Any content created by you or others can be posted. And it could be a combination of text accompanied by pictures or short videos that show the reality of the situation that you're concerned with and you want others to be aware of. So this is the framework, Sister Bernadette was talking about a communication plan. So this is a framework that I would like to propose. The C, the judge, to provide reflections and moral judgment based on church teachings, especially. And then to show what is being done or should be done. So this is should be part of our communication plan, what we need to communicate, what we need to share. So the C, judge and act framework. C, to enable others to become aware of what is happening, especially the ecological crisis, the cry of the earth, and the cry of the poor. According to Laudato Si, we have to realize that true ecological approach becomes a social approach. It must integrate the question of justice in debates on the environment so as to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. That's why that, in our Facebook page, we can post this. This is what's happening in the mining in Brazil. And we can also share from YouTube, the global warming, what is happening. Those are GPAC OFM. Recently, they have also posted this. To post what is actually happening related to the ecological crisis from your own point of view, and especially those affected. Share stories. This is what Sister Bernadette was reminding us. Stories are very important. Share reports and analysis that show the picture, the big picture and the long-term effects. And you can even share from newsfeed coming from mass media. This coming up from various mass media, immediately you can share that in Facebook. That's what was from the UN report that warns on the impact of climate change. It can be shared in Facebook. Second is judge. Analysis, reflections on the situation from the moral and theological perspective. This is where we can promote what is Laudato Si and the other teachings of the church. We can also share analysis about the destruction, for example, the ecosystems and the pandemic. And that's why that in our Facebook page is what we shared. There's a link between the pandemic and the destruction of the ecosystems. Articles, can be shared to providing analysis for reflection on church moral social teachings. If you have an article to share, make sure it is short. If it is a long article, give a brief summary and provide a link should others be interested to have the time for more. If it's a long article, give a brief summary and then provide a link should others be interested and have the time for more. You can write an article on your blog or website and then post it on Facebook. Copy and paste the URL. The third is the act. What is being done or should be done to promote integral ecology in response to the ecological crisis, for example, the Laudato Si. Share stories of what you are doing in response to ecological crisis, the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. Share stories of what others are doing and the best practices that can be replicated. Invite them to join or participate in your campaign. This is what I shared actually in my Facebook account in 2014. 14 when I did the climate ride. I started alone, biking alone across the Philippines, to draw attention to the climate change. And through Facebook, it was picked up by the media, and later on, biking groups joined me. And that's the power of social media. Started by biking alone and picked up by the mass media, shared in Facebook accounts, and then groups joining me later on. Father Beltrans actually started this Laudato Si Covenant 8-year campaign in social media. Plant 1 billion bamboo trees, build a bamboo industry, build carbon sink, organize 1 million organic farmers and network to cut GHG emissions, recycle millions of plastic, tons of plastics. This is the campaign that he started in social media. And of course, this is what the GPIC OFM also shared, what they are doing. The greening, the tree planting. The Diocese of Maasin adopts a solar power program. This was shared in social media. Imagine the whole diocese, posting in the social media what they've been doing in adopting the solar power. Not just in the whole diocese, in the various parishes and the basic ecclesial communities. Bishop de la Pina promoted backyard gardening during this pandemic. So share how you and others are living the lifestyle and spiritually based on Laudato Si. According to Laudato Si, Christian spirituality proposes an alternative lifestyle. Understanding of the quality of life encourages a prophetic and contemplative lifestyle, one capable of deep enjoyment, the absorption with consumption. What we share can be any of this, whether seed, just, or even a combination of the three. You can create the content. Or you can pass on what others have created. It's not just a sharing of ideas or pictures, but a sharing of experiences and stories. Storytelling, again, this is very important. And this is what Pope Francis said. This year, I want to dedicate to World Communication Day to the storytelling. In order not to get lost, we must share the truth of good stories of our own. Stories that build up and help, roots and strengthen forward together. Your post images. In your post, images with your pictures and videos are very powerful. This is especially helpful in making people aware and letting them see the situation. It's what people see that can have a great impact. A picture is equivalent to 1,000 words. Although it's necessary to accompany captions with a posting photos you have taken is helpful. You're acting as a witness. You can also share photos posted by others, but make sure you make necessary acknowledgement to avoid copyright infringement, CTTO. Of course, you can also find a lot of images in Google. It's a source of sharing images. You can post videos you have taken yourself or share those made by others. You can also find this in YouTube. Avoid posting long videos. The times, the problem with a lot of people is, they can't, if it's too long, they won't be able to, they don't want to look at it. Longer videos can be put as resource in our website or page and simply provide the link. Facebook has a live video feature that shows what is happening in the real time. Actually, I'm looking at my smartphone, and what we are doing now is on Facebook. It's posted live. Of course, with the 5G technology coming, and there will be more use of video. But you have to make fact check. Before posting, make sure to check that, whether it's true also of what you're sharing. Be careful that you're not posting false or fake information. Always check the sources. Beware of frauds. Share the good news, not the fake news. The social media is a powerful tool for promoting integral ecology. But besides operating in cyberspace, we all have to be involved in the real world and have face-to-face interaction with others. Let us not forget that no matter how weak or how small, how insignificant our acts are, or how few we are, even if we are alone, all this can be magnified and widened beyond time and space through social media. Social media connects us to people everywhere, but we have to move from connection to communion. And this is what Father Martin was wanted to in the final section of his talk. Communion, from connection to communion. And this requires developing a sense of belonging, solidarity, friendship, sharing, and participation. And this is at the core of social media. We have to avoid anonymity and individualism because we are not alone. The internet and social media provides the means for realizing the vision of the church as communion and participation in mission. This is a theme for the next Synod of Bishops, the synodality. It is also through the internet and social media that the members of the church can actively participate in the mission of new evangelization, in social transformation that brings about justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. And the challenge for the church leaders, the religious and lay people, is how to make use of the available information and communication technology and social networking to promote ecclesial communion and active participation in the mission. And that includes promoting integral ecology. And finally, let me again echo Pope Francis. The internet offers immense possibilities for encounter and solidarity. This is something truly a gift from God. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you, Father Pickardell. You've really taken us on quite a journey, you know, through the various phases, the challenges, your own personal commitment to really being involved in the global perspective and sharing all of the things that matter to you so much. So thank you for this journey throughout the world through the social media that you put together. Very, very thoughtful presentation and really involving much, much work. So thank you again for that. Your spirituality of engagement certainly comes through very strongly in this. When they come back, when we get to the question period, some of the questions that are coming up are in terms of the negative effects of social media. But before we engage into those conversations, I'd like to go back to Father Martin, who now, which is very important, will finish off his presentation. But I think in some ways, Father Martin, you might want to engage what was said in the last two presentations as well as you finish what you have to say. So thank you, Father Martin, please.
Okay, I don't know, you are seeing my screen.
Yes, it's good. It's very good.
So the basic idea of my presentation is this. We have to change our mentality. Mental ecology comes first, physical ecology. So to arrive to integral ecology, we have to change our conception of the human being and of reality. In my book, I used these two expressions. Reality is a web of life. And I put into relationship the web of life with life in the web. For me, there are two expressions of the same thing, because at the beginning of everything, there is a community. The community of Father, Son, and Spirit. Everything has been created to be in a network, to get to communion and community. Communication is true only when it gets to communion and builds community. So digital media facilitate collaboration. In this way, when digital media communication is not fake news, but facilitates communication, it is reinforcing the web of life. Life in the web is reinforcing the web of life. Digital technologies can facilitate collaboration and respectful dialogue at various levels. There are some scientific sciences that studied this. For instance, media ecology. Media ecology considers the media as environments and studies the important influence they have on the way we think, feel, and behave. They create an environment that surrounds us and shapes our perception of cognition. Don't think that the media are instruments. The media are not instruments, are an ambience. We are inside the environment they create. They give us the symbolic structure within and through which we encode, decode, and otherwise ideate and talk about what we sense or know about the world around us. So it is, there are a very close relationship. The whole of reality is a network of life, which has its origins in the Trinitarian communion and is oriented towards it. Society also is a network of relationships, fruit of our intrinsic sociability. Therefore, everything that exists is closely related. And this web of life reflects in our life in the web. When human beings communicate in the physical and digital spheres, they are reflecting and reinforcing the basic dynamisms of all reality. It's not something external, instrumental. It's something that comes with our being. We are all immersed in the ecosystem with the digital era has made possible. I like this expression by Pope Benedict. Current technologies, information and communication technologies, can lead us to establish narcissistic relationships and to anxiously seek pointless fun, but also, if used wisely, they can contribute to the satisfaction of the desire for meaning, truth, and unity, which remains the most profound aspirations of each human being. So this close relationship, I think it is important. Getting to the conclusion, the Church reminds us that the earth is our common home and that everything is related. Therefore, greed and selfishness are nonsense. Unfortunately, today we are more connected, but more alone. There is a study that shows that in 15 years, the number of close friends for every people has gone from 3 to 2. So more connected, but more alone. Technology has greatly increased material goods and worldwide connectivity, but individualism is also growing. We have to change this. In our society, we breathe this mentality of conflict, of perennial conflict. For instance, in economics, a war of interests as the most effective way to foster progress. Business is business. Or as Wall Street said, Gordon, greed is good, greed is right. Your death is my life. In politics, a perpetual arms race is supported to secure peace. Si vis pacem, para bellum. If you like peace, prepare war. In medicine, holistic medical treatments are left aside to promote a direct fight against pathogens. At the communication level, fake news are used as weapons to hurt and nullify opponents. Also at the sociocultural level, homogenization is forced to get rid of any uncomfortable diversity. This is the most normal mentality in many people. Even if we see internet, we find out that collaboration is so important. We have to change this mentality. Evolution was not the result of a fight. Evolution is the result mainly of collaboration. Our being in society is not because we are selfish. We need others, of course, but because we have so much to give. Our being in social networks is an expression of our intrinsic sociability, even if sometimes we don't use them very rightly. So the web of life goes together with life in the web. Being in network is our natural way of living. If we want to survive, we have to be in network. Otherwise, any virus will come and will destroy all of us. But even we have to recuperate the sense of sickness, the sense of the death. For Francis, death was a sister. Being together with nature means to embrace also the negative aspects, to find a sense to everything. We have to learn how to narrate, how to find a sense to everything that happens. We are followers of somebody that died in the cross. This conception that stresses separation, sometimes we have that when we see at our lives. We are not able to put together everything, even on success. So I think that being ecological is to be able to embrace the whole of reality, even our fragility, even our unsuccesses, to find a sense, to be sure that our history is in the hands of somebody who loves us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Father Martin, for really bringing to a close all the presentations with perspective as we are following the one of the cross, for sure. And it's very clear that you have much to offer. And I would encourage people to go to your website where you've listed a number of books in different languages. The fruitfulness of your own reflection and your spirituality, Franciscan spirituality, certainly comes out in the words that you've been sharing. So thank you again for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you for letting me be here.
So we have some time here now for some questions and comments. So I gave Father Amando one of the questions to answer in terms of some of the negative effects, but we will be also asking others to share comments or questions as well. So Father Amando, would you like to start off on the question period with your response?
Okay, there's always a dark side to social media, especially when it can also become a means of, as I said, controlling how we think and how we feel. And that's why that it can be subject to manipulation. But it's always be careful. And that's why that I always emphasize that we have to check the sources. Where is it coming from? Where is the good news and where is the fake news? We cannot just, we have to be critical of anything that appears on our news feed or what is being shared. We have to fact check. And we have also to be able to, again, make use of our moral judgment, which is right and which is wrong. We cannot just accept everything that we hear or see in media. At the same time, that one of the main concerns is really privacy. That's why that there's still some people who don't want to open social media. And number one is they don't know how to use it. All they know is how to post selfies and the latest picture. But it's important that because we can actually control, what we share. Is it public? Is it to friends only, or is it for ourselves? And so that's why that we have to be critical and have to check everything. Another thing more, it can be addictive. And this is one of the latest problem, because there are some people who spend 4 hours, 5 hours, and especially now during this lockdown, they spend most of their time in social media. Well, we cannot blame them, because it is their only connection to the world. And that's why the lockdown is actually fueling more addiction. But it's important we have to have limits. How often, how long, and what should we, what are the things that we need to, check on, watch, and we have to limit.
Thank you, Father. That's the challenge, to see, the judge, the act, that you've kind of given us a frame of reference to really look at what the situations are, seeing how it connects with our own spirituality, and then how our actions certainly speak the words that we come to hold inside ourselves. So you know that from personal experience, the importance of checking out factual information, because so much can be done to smear anybody's reputation. So we want to be really careful with that. Another question was asked in terms of the books that Father Martin has written. They are in English. There are different languages depending upon which one you're choosing. They're available just for a number of uses. So please check his website, and you will see in Spanish and in Portuguese and English, other languages too, depending upon who will publish it in those countries. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Sheila, there are other questions before.
Okay, I'm just looking at
what in Spanish. Yeah.
Well, please, would you ask him, Patricia, so we know who we should direct it to?
Yes, I can ask the question, but people can also, if they want, they can also ask the question directly.
Okay,
Isabel, yes. Voy en la sala español, entonces
So the participants have the possibility to activate their microphone. Anyhow, I'm going to read the question of Isabel. Isabel asks, how can we move forward in the use of technology so that it doesn't represent a new breach among people and places? Let's see if there are others in Spanish. Another one from Isabel, connected. How can we integrate all this computer progress and the use of technology with the development of the zones, the areas where we extract the blood minerals?
So she's looking at what are some advocacy can we be using to help one another frame the message that we need to have in order to make a change, and then the kind of support that's necessary to really be there for the long haul and to really interface with a number of the groups that need to be affected. I think somewhat the children are teaching us how to do that. They are connecting with one another. If you and any of these Friday strikes that were there, they're moving from one place to the other. Nobody is yelling. Everybody knows what to do. And we also know that the young people in London, where there is some mining corporations who have their offices there, are connecting with the young people in Latin America, so that they want to be in solidarity with one another. Their mindset is quite global. So I think that they are teaching us some things that we need to learn. For example, the global Catholic climate movement really spearheaded with young people. Young people are showing us a way to go forward and are making the connections that we need. So you raise, when you talk about the mining issues and the issues of degradation to the land, we need to be working together, on that as well. through creativity. They're making little apps to be used in phones. So we have to see, we have to stay connected to see how we can go forward. So thank you, Isabel, for that question. Anyone else from the group want to respond to?
Sorry,
the
there's also
ethical-
another question. Then
Yeah,
you can answer, because
yeah.
there is a specific question for Father Martin.
Okay.
Can you elaborate more your thought that for us Christians, the highest expression of our identity is the capacity to self-donation without disregarding self-care?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's. I will share my web page. So maybe if somebody would like, okay. I think that, well, if I start with a theological, philosophical approach, maybe that will take me quite long. But I think that we have to reinforce graciousness, gratuitousness as the basis of reality. We have stressed very much the fact that we are rational animals. So we have a privilege. We are superior to the others. We have understood that as a privilege. I remember once I was in England and they gave me a poster with a tiger, and it says, how can I be humble when I am so good, when somebody is so good as me? So we have stressed privileges, differences. We have to stress the opposite. The saying by Descartes, I think, therefore I am, should be changed to I have been thought, I have been loved, therefore I am. At the beginning is the loving freedom of somebody who thought of you without you deserving anything. So if everything is the fruit of loving freedom, I cannot stress separation and privileges. Everything I have is to share. Everything is to self-donate. Because self-donating, I become more and more myself. And in this way, I think it's also important to distinguish clearly between the technological and the anthropological dimensions of communication. If you remember, Socrates never wrote a letter because he thought that writing was not a right technique. Plato tells us about this. So this polemic, this debate comes from centuries. The technologies help us to be connected, but communication is much more. We can be very connected and very alone. So we have to distinguish clearly this. For instance, with respect to empathy, there are some studies who show that people who use the new technologies are the less empathic. So that's a bit worrying. So technology can help, but can also isolate us. We have to change our mentality. We are for self-giving because we are the fruit of gift. If we change this mentality, everything changes. Also, when we approach the ecological sphere, I think there are three main ways of approaching the ecological. One is the domineering one, the anthropocentric. Dominate, to do what I like. Another one is the steward, administration. God has given us this to administrate properly. But I think that even this one is not enough. We have to arrive to a third way. Because being an administrator maybe we think we are administrating something that is not really us. That we are also only in charge of something as a steward, and that is not very compelling. We have to arrive to the Franciscan way, to the St. Francis way, to feel brothers and sisters, to feel joyfully united to people. So self-giving. If we arrive to this stage that only the mystic can arrive, contemplation will be possible, and our approach to everything will be different. Even our being in the net, in the life in the net. Okay, I think it's enough.
Thank you very much for sharing that perspective. I'd like to have Sister Bernadette have a comment or whatever. There was questions raised about the ethical issues in communication, use of children's pictures. So could you want to just comment on those, please?
Okay. There are a lot of photos that are available through different organizations that make them available, which can be used. The question about using children's photos is generally a question that each company can take into consideration. And it's something that I think it's a very, very good question. But there's also a larger question that has come up recently about the use of images, and that is the use of images of people who are caught in public events, who are singled out because, for example, of an incident, or there's one recently, I don't remember all of the details, but the woman was either attacked or something, and she became the subject of photographs that went viral, and she had no ability to give her consent. However, generally speaking, if someone is in public and something happens, it's generally seen as that people have permission to use photographs in journalism. However, that is now being contested. So all of these things need to be taken into consideration, and it always, always, always goes back to the dignity of the human person. And I think a real good rule of thumb for any of these questions is, if that were me, would I want that photograph used? Or if these were my children, would I want this photograph used? So above and beyond the ethics or what is allowed and what isn't allowed, I think there are some deeper issues that enter in here. Were there any more specific? I'm trying to see, there's been a lot.
Yeah.
I think, though, it is important, getting back to, again, what we've heard, and that is, if I can put myself in relationship with others, that will automatically enter into how I use Facebook, how we use these means. It always goes back to myself in relationship with others. And I think a good rule of thumb is always that when we're making decisions about others, to put myself in the mix. Is what I'm going to do, how is it going to affect another person? And then we evaluate. If every one of us would, and isn't it the basic rule of thumb, do unto others as you would have them do unto you? It always goes back to what our ancestors thousands and thousands of years ago already discovered, that we've somehow lost and need to go back to.
Thank you, Sister Bernadette, really, for going full circle and bringing it back to ourselves. Do unto others as you would have them do unto ourselves. So I'd like to now, it's time for closing this wonderful morning, thanking the translator, certainly Mary Lou, for dealing both with English and in Spanish. Also the technical assistance from Sister Florence and Sister, and I'm putting there as a sister for sure, Patricia in communications, and all of you who are participated in this in any way. This has been really kind of a communion experience. This is the beginning of Laudato Si week. There are many Laudato Si events being planned particularly want to raise up that by the Global Catholic Climate Movement to go to their website to register during any of the events that they're having during this week. And also that we will have a prayer this coming Tuesday from 11 to 12 on the UISG website. Again, it's in English and Spanish, so both groups have put something together, which we will share for 1 hour. So again, thank you to all of our speakers, Father Martin, Sister Bernadette, and also Father Amado for really a very stimulating, very rewarding, and enriching time together. So as Pope Francis would say, for many of us, it is bone pranzo. God bless all of you, and stay safe, and continue to be in solidarity with one another. That's the important message. Okay.
Obrigada. Excelente. Excelente. Muito bom.
Really great.
Gostei demais. Aprendi.
Very much. That was really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the inspiration.
God bless.
Thank you very much.
Ah,
Very nice.
Est-ce qu'elle ne veut pas y aller toute seule parce qu'elle veut faire monter des cendres. Elle fera...
Cerrados, pero
9, 10, 11.
Et puis surtout, si tu veux, s'il se passe quelque chose avec Camille...
9 to 12 noon, 9 a.m. to 12.
el virus ha parado los aviones, pero no nos ha parado a nosotros.
It's 9 a.m. to 12. That means...
Okay. God bless. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Je vais la première semaine d'août à Quiberon. Je pense que j'irai après chez vous.
Ok.
La semaine avant le 15 août, là. La seconde semaine.
Pensava que estou a animar o grupo.
Bom, bem.
A que se não esquita. Dá para fotografias para a oportunidade. Ah, que jeitão.
Je suis contente, moi, d'aller à Quiberon la première semaine d'août parce qu'il y a Arnaud et du coup, on peut se...
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed. Really enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Julia.
I close.
Okay.
Very good. It was very, very good, Sheila. Very good.
Thank you very much, Sister Florence.
No, we got some difficulty at the beginning with the connection of the father, but then it was very good. Very good.
Thank you, Florence. Yeah. Thank you.
Sheila, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thanks. Good day.
Enjoy your rest of the afternoon.
Here is interpretation. English, Spanish.